Today is February 17th, 1998. Here's Bob Cato talk about himself in the past and where you grew up. Your father was Robert Ernest Cato,
right?
And so that makes you a junior?
Well, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to be called a junior, so it was tacked on to me, which is okay. But it's easier for it not to be. That's okay.
Well, but you had the same name, right?
I'm Robert Ernest. My dad was Robert Edward.
Oh, I see. So you're not really a junior, but they
really
called you a junior.
They called me junior, and it was complicated if I didn't. So I went ahead and put junior onto it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That was a long time ago.
Well, when you were a child, did they call you Robert?
No, they called me Junior.
Oh, Junior. I see.
Junior!
I see.
Supper's ready!
Oh, okay.
Didn't mean to do that.
Right.
My throat is a little rough.
And so you, and your mother's name was Estelle?
Estelle. E-S-T-E-L-L-E. Estelle.
Right. And what was her middle name?
Margaret Estelle.
Margaret Estelle. So Estelle was her middle name.
Yeah.
Glover,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And so her father was, what was his name?
Well, he was fought in the Civil War.
Her father did?
Yeah.
So your father-in-law...
William Owens Glover lived with us for years as I was growing up. And he died when I was probably, I think, in high school. And he had a finger shot off and had a hole shot in his arm or something. During the Confederate War.
Yeah, during the U.S. Civil War.
Civil War. But
well, wasn't that her grandfather?
That is not really the way it should be. It should be the Civil War I'm trying to make.
Right. No, that was your wife's father or your wife's grandfather?
My wife's.
I mean, your mother's father or your mother's grandfather?
My mother's father.
Okay.
It goes back pretty fast.
Your mother's father. Okay. So, well, that'd be like your grandfather's age, a man.
Yeah.
It must have been his father.
It must have been his father, but
must have been your wife's grandfather.
Right. But I know he fought in the Civil War.
Right.
My grandfather fought in the Civil War, and so that's just what it was.
Right. And so. Okay, so your grandfather. So it was your.
Right. They had.
It was your. I guess it was your mother's father then.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
They had a Confederate get-togethers back in the early days as I was starting to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Civil War was in the way back there.
Yeah.
Not that far that I didn't remember that my grandfather who fought in the Civil War. So, but that's.
And
we all have opinions about it,
Well, you have his Civil War records, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And his name was, what was his first name?
William Owen.
William Owen Glover?
William Owen, W. Glover.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And that was my mom's dad.
And was he from Belmont too?
In that area.
Mm-hmm.
He farmed for years.
And so then your mother had how many children? 11 kids?
11.
11 kids.
Yeah. Winnie died, I think, when she was very young.
Right.
And then I can't remember when the others died. So just Winnie was the one that I remember most.
Okay. Let me stop it and see how I was doing. Okay, you're talking about Winnie?
Yeah, that was Wilma's twin. I think she caught pneumonia when she was young, very young, and she died from the pneumonia. It was not unusual for people to die from diseases that today would be treated very, very simply.
Right.
But back then, a lot of them died. That's one of them.
Well, tell me about all your brothers and sisters. The oldest one was...
The oldest was Edward, and yeah. Just remember that I was number 12. 12? 10, 11 or 12 of a big family of children. So, first of all, it was Edward, and then there was Ralph, and Lillian, Ruth, Wilma. Did I say Lillian?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. Wilma, John, me, and Louise, and Wilma was a twin. By the way, I forgot about that. Wilma and Winnie were twins. So that wouldn't make 11. I think so.
I wouldn't count.
I'm not sure.
John is somewhere in there.
Yeah, right. John was in there too.
Curtis.
Right. We get one in there sooner or later.
Well, Ed was the oldest, and
Right.
He was a lot older than you, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. He's the oldest.
So how much did you interact with Ed?
Well, he worked with my dad a lot back before the war, and well, even quite a bit before that, as doing helping with the farms. But he gradually went into building, and so doing carpenter work and things like that.
Mm-hmm. He eventually was a fireman, wasn't he?
I think he was. I'm not sure about him. But Ralph was close to that. In the early days, I just don't have too much don't have too much about Edward and Ralph, so I had to sort of minimize it. And Ruth was the first woman. Amber, Curtis, and Wilma. Yes, it was
Curtis,
John, me, Louise, and that was about it. There were two sets of twins, I think, Wilma and Winnie. One died, and the other was, I can't remember.
No, I think there was just one set of twins.
It might be.
Well, who did you play with most as a boy growing up? Which siblings were the closest to you in age?
Well, Big John. That's about it.
And Louise?
Yeah, Louise and Louise and Lillian and Wilma. I guess that's the main ones. Like in the young ones.
Right. And so you were born in Belmont, and the house on what road?
It was on South Point Road.
South Point Road?
South Point Road. It's about a mile out of town.
Remember the address?
No, we had no addresses back then. Just that name, the mailman would come by and they got where they were distributing mail to the houses. That was, it wasn't too long ago, really. So they began to get their mail, but then before that, they just had to go get a box and a mailman just threw them in the box.
Being a post office box.
They just didn't have them open post. They just threw them in the box on the ground. Kind of a rough way to do it, but then they put the box up on the pedestal, and that worked out better. Much better.
And then, did you live in that one house your whole childhood?
Until the war came along, with World War II.
I see.
You see, they had already built that house, and so I don't remember some of the first men and women of the family.
You mean as children?
The children.
Right.
I didn't know them. The children, they were adults, and they were already working cotton mills and farming and doing whatever they could do to survive, especially back during the Depression. So then I graduated, went on to school and graduated from high school, and then I started working for my dad. He was a builder by that time, and so I had to help him with the building the houses.
Well, when he was a builder, did he still have a farm?
No. Just have corn and beans and things like that.
Just kind of a yard garden.
But we could always get somebody to come out and plow the field. It's not a small field, I guarantee.
Yeah.
So
was that right at the house?
What's that?
Right at the house?
Right at the house, yeah. Right. And the back of the house, off the east side. Because
So when you had pigs or hogs, did you keep them right there by that house?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had the hogs. They would shoot till wait till winter time to kill the hogs. They shoot them in the head, and the pigs they would cut the pigs into like hams and whatever else you call them. So they just cut them up, and they put lots of salt on them, and put them in a storage house. They had salt on them, and the dead ones were in there, and hang them up, and the pigs, the meat stayed real well.
Would you smoke them?
I don't think we ever tried to. They pop smoke them. I think they use salt.
I see. You ever tried chitlins?
I didn't. I guess some of them. Yeah, some of them did. Some of them. Maybe a couple of neighbors down the road somewhere. I don't know why anybody would eat those.
Really?
Of course, they cooked them and get them all. But they usually actually use a lot of that for sausage.
Yeah, right.
Put the sausage inside of the chitlins and cut those in lengths. So that was quite something else.
So did your house have running water?
No.
No running water?
Well, just before my dad in the 30s moved to Charlotte because he was going to start some building programs, and so they moved on there. Then so a place over there, and
well, I thought you said you lived.
I
thought you said you lived in that house till World War II.
Well, I was wrong about living there that long, because we had moved to Charlotte so we could be closer to where all that stuff was going on. And then that's when the war came on, while we were living in Charlotte.
Where in Charlotte did you live?
It's I can't remember the name of the street, but it's the other side of Charlotte, part of the town from where we lived. And so,
the northeast side?
Yeah, it was the northeast side. So that...
Is that when you started going to Pritchard Memorial?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. this turned out to be a pretty good-sized church. And a lot of people we got to know in later life. About that time, we started getting acquainted with them, and so that was it was good. But then the guys got drafted, or knew they were going to be drafted very shortly, and so when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, which was on Sunday, I think, and then the next day I rushed down to the recruiting office and signed up. So I was already 21. I knew I'd be going to the war.
So you were still living with your parents then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was working, doing carpenter work for my dad.
But back to your house in Belmont and running water, did you install running water before you moved?
Yeah, I think they installed a pump, electric pump. Yeah, to pump the water for the well.
For the well, so you had some sinks in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You have toilets.
Yep.
So they had to put in a.
That was just very close to where before we got running water, we had a two-holer out back of the house. You know, our family was so big that one holer just wouldn't handle it.
Right.
So if you were in the toilet, but and somebody wanted to knock on and make sure they were, if it was one of the male part of the family,
yeah,
they could come on in. But of course, you had to go to the bathroom in a hurry. Just knocked on. They knocked on the door, and then you find out which man or woman or something like that. But that changed, of course, later. We moved to Charlotte later, and so we got running water.
But you've installed that running water before you left that house.
I'm not sure about that. It's just we cranked water up from the wells and poured all the water into the tubs for the scrubbing.
And you finished high school in Belmont?
Yeah.
Belmont High School?
Yeah. Then we moved to Charlotte.
And you said that you had built a telephone set in Belmont?
Yeah. It was, that was actually in Belmont. It was where I could, the science teacher at the school up there in Belmont High School showed me how to hook up those units. There's a one you put in the ground, one you run to the other person, and they put it ground. And that somehow or another that made it work. You could talk into it, and then that way we could talk to each other, and used a battery to make a connection between 2 points, and that would make a buzzing sound, and that we'd say our ring was three long rings on the phone. I'm talking about the one that we had out there in the shed,
right,
back of the house. So I had my phone fixed up and watched through the field and down the hollow and over to Moran Abbe. He was one of them. And Billy Graham, not Billy Graham, Billy Lewis was on the one across another field over there. And maybe I think there's one or two more, Neal Ryan. And then we got all that sort of worked out, and we just sit up at night, with our phones at night in the house, and we had run a wire in there to talk to them. So we could just talk to them, just as plain as you please. And there was, we just had a little buzzer set, which actually was a electric sounder on the something in the speaker system, I guess it was. So then my dad decided he was going to have to move to Charlotte because all of his business was over there. He, They had wanted him to build a bunch of houses. So he said, well, that way now he's going to be get something worked out and go on and get going. So that's what he did. We moved to Charlotte and we rented a place. So
you sold your house in Belmont?
Mm-hmm. And he built out of a small lumber yard. He built a little building place about the size of this room, pretty good size, maybe a little bigger. So he could make windows and doors and different kind of door frames and kitchen cabinets and all kind of things. He'd make them and take them out to new houses and install them. So everything was moving along pretty good, and then all of a sudden there was Pearl Harbor. So I went. So that shattered his wants of getting into a nice sized lumberyard there at the he was trying to get into a good sized shop work at the City Lumber Company, and so we got going in that, and then the Pearl Harbor was bombed, and I knew I was going. I had to go to war because I was just turned 21. So I wanted to get in the Navy. And so I got in line and went to town, got in line, and waited a long, long time, finally got signed up. And off to the war I went. For over 4 years. It's a long time. So I went off to war, and I came back and got home on a train. And then they told me I wanted to go to school up at NC State. And they thought I was crazy. You've done all that time, you should go ahead and get to go to work and get something going for yourself. And I told them, I said, I'm going to get paid by the government for expenses while I went. So that's what happened.
Yeah, what a deal.
So then we went on to Raleigh and stayed up there about 4 or 5 years. And the GI, they put those barracks up out there, down in the valley there near the creek. Before that, I had a little small trailer, maybe about 8 feet or 9 or 10 feet wide, plus about 20 feet long, maybe not even that long. So Florence and I lived in that little trailer there on the campus for about a year. And then they got those whole government soldiers' barracks. They cut them in sections where they were, and then hauled them over there on the campus and put them back together and nailed them together, nailed those sections together, and so they used them as campus for campus GIs.
All right, so there's a good use for it.
Yeah. So 4 years later, I graduated from college.
Well, didn't your family somehow get back into that same house in Belmont?
I think somebody in the family went back there, but I can't remember who it was.
I think it was Lillian, wasn't it?
It might have. It probably was.
Lillian and her husband and her kids.
Maybe Ed. I'm not sure.
And then later on, your parents started living with them over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean they didn't sell that house in Belmont?
Well, I'm sure they did. I just didn't pay no attention to it.
Well, it seems odd that they wind up back in the same house.
Well, that's where all the relatives live over in that area.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the probability of being able to buy the same house back?
I'm not sure they did. To tell you the truth, I just don't remember.
Well, I can remember going over to a house in Belmont, visiting your parents, and Lillian living there with her boys.
Mm-hmm.
Vernon and Harold, I think their name was.
Yeah.
Are. And you saying, well, this is the house you were born in.
Well, that was the house there on the highway running out of Belmont. and that's where we were living most of the time at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Except for, like I said, I went off to the war, and then he came back home in Charlotte, came back home in Belmont, and then it was after the war, I think, it's when Pop decided to move to Charlotte. It definitely was.
Right. Well, maybe he never sold that house in Belmont. Maybe he just rented it out.
He sold it to, I don't know what the deal was on that. So I just couldn't tell you. I don't know who was going to get that house.
And you don't think your parents ever lived in it again?
Because they wanted Pop wanted to go to Charlotte, and the City Lumber Company wanted him to build a woodworking shop so he can make doors and
right
and wood frames around for the doors, window frames, and different things like that.
But then when they got older, they moved back to Belmont.
Yeah, I think so. I stayed in Charlotte. I worked in Charlotte. Worked at J&P's company. What was the name of it? This was after I got out of college on the GIBL. I reckon that's about it.
Well, then when you got in the war, you were on a destroyer, right?
Mm-hmm. On a destroyer. I requested it, which is done, but that's what I did. I wanted to get out there where they were, and that's where I went. I requested destroyer duty, and people said, "This guy's crazy. Go ahead and put him on it."
Right. Better him than me. Right.
3 or 4 guys told me that they were trying to get on board it, and here I was trying to sign up for it. So I wanted to get after these crowds.
And then,
So I went on off.
So what was the first ship you were on?
Well, I went on off to boot camp, and some other stuff going on. Then I finally got on board the ship.
What was that ship's name?
Carmick. Destroyer.
McCormick?
No, destroyer. Carmick.
Oh, Carmick.
C-A-R-M-I-C-Q. Carmick.
Where did you go in the Carmick?
Mostly convoy duty to England, and couldn't go anywhere else at that time. It was too risky. So couldn't take it anywhere except to England.
So did you have any shore time in London?
Very little. They wanted to keep you on the base. They round you up and put you back there and get on back to the States.
Uh-huh.
And
so you didn't spend any time in London?
Not much at all. When you did go on the base, you stayed on the base. Now later on, you were able to get out and mingle with the public.
Uh-huh.
Not at first year or two. And let's see. I think what else?
So you just made these runs between New York and London? Mm-hmm. Not just, but running the convoys back and forth?
Sometime later, see, they got the Army, and we got the Navy. Went down to North Africa, which is where you come through it to Gibraltar.
Right.
And just in a short distance there is, well, before you get quite into Gibraltar, you go down to
Casablanca.
Casablanca, yeah. They wanted us to go into Casablanca and get. Now we were late getting there. They were put an invasion force in there and got it. Had to take that place and put it under control. Now, we didn't get on that particular one, but we were on our way over there because we were trying to avoid going through the entrance there in Gibraltar. we weren't sure about the Germans at that time. And so we went down the coast and come back in on it down there. In Casablanca. So that's, we went in there, and there's a piece of a German plane that crashed right about too far away. And then, so I ripped off a piece of that, and I put it over here somewhere. Finally wound up. The other day I was looking for that thing, and I can't find it nowhere.
Well, I'm sure it's right there somewhere.
I don't know. I hope it's there. So, anyhow, it's...
But was that on the Carmack?
Mm-hmm.
Same.
The Carmick.
You went to Africa on the Carmack?
Mm-hmm. I think it was a Carmick. I don't know. We were just there, and then they switched us to somebody else, and then back again to Stacy or somewhere, and then back again. It was just a big old football field. Just a big. You just had to keep looking. So.
Then you got transferred to the Whipple, right?
Yeah, the Whipple was a force attacker. That was back up later in the season year. We got that fixed to do convoy duty. And that's the duty I got transferred to. And I was assigned to the Commodore for that group. So it's a yeoman for him. And he is in charge of all the destroyers in that squadron, which they were all force attackers. And they weren't quite as the weapons weren't quite as up to date as they were back at the first part of town. And they tried to fire some of these guns, and you drop a shell in, and I don't know, that's what all had to do to get it done, get it going.
Was London where you would enter England, or would some other city?
Actually, they were. Couldn't say about it. We were sent on up into Ireland at that time.
Is that where you'd go every time, up into Ireland?
Well, that's what we did. We weren't there for a couple of days, and then, well, I don't know for sure about that. A couple of days, and then we were trying to get into the Mediterranean, because it hadn't been get that opened up or what. I just can't remember. I think we went down further to Casablanca first, and then back up to Gibraltar.
Well, what port did you go into in London? I mean, in Ireland.
In Ireland. I don't remember that at all. It was so hectic at this. It just didn't do anything.
And so then most of the time, when you went back to the States, you'd go into New York City port?
Yeah. But that was not very frequent. We get back once in a while.
And so that's where you met Florence?
Mm-hmm. Of course, I met her in New York City.
Well, how'd you meet her?
Well, she was at, I was going to get friend something, some kind of get something to take home if I ever got a chance to go home. And I went to a jewelry store.
Uh-huh.
And so it was on Fifth Avenue. And because somebody told me, said, well, I was going to go there on Times Square, but they said, don't go there, they'll jip you. So I went around there on Fifth Avenue to a jewelry store. And
Do you remember the name of the store?
Yeah, she worked there.
What's the name of the store? She's told me a million times. At any rate, I met her there, and she was real nice. And so I said,
something like want to go get a sandwich? But I couldn't afford much else. Because there's a little sandwich store on down the road on Fifth Avenue. Well, not Fifth Avenue, but the other road. She said, well, okay. So she went with me to get something to eat, and we just wandering around.
Uh-huh.
Then the next day, we sailed. And so what happened, then every time we got back to the States, I'd go see her. So that's the way I realized what it was. She's a really nice person.
And she was living where then?
In the Bronx.
Uh-huh.
It's a good place to live, so. So, then she'd ride the subway down there, Times Square, close to Fifth Avenue.
Well, what'd she do at the jewelry store?
Just as clerk to sell the stuff.
I see, sales clerk.
Mm-hmm. Or whatever else she had to do. She was a good nice lady.
So then you went and met her parents?
Yeah, that was, I didn't get to this time or leaving the next time. At the first time, the first trips going into New York City, well, after I got on the destroyer, see, we'd be doing convoy duty, first while to Iceland, and maybe to Ireland or something like that, and then I'd head back, and we'd go into Bermuda or somewhere, not Bermuda, but a couple of those islands there, so we could refuel and restock, and so we'd go through there and get refueled, and then take off and go on, come on back to the States, pick up another convoy and back and go. So we wouldn't see each other except maybe once or twice. But until
once or twice every how much time?
It takes time to get the cargo ship ready. And
so you'd see her about once every 3 months, once every 6 months?
2 or 3, 4. It depends on where our mission is. We went down to the Caribbean a couple times. And, different places. Get unloaded and get back again. It was just a matter of trying to survive while you were delivering that stuff.
So where did you take Florence out on your first date?
First date? Tavern on the Green. I've heard some of the guys saying that's a good place to eat because they treat you nice, and a couple of guys got a free meal. So I mentioned to her, and she said, well, it's going to be pretty expensive. I said, well, it won't be that bad. We'll go there. Because I knew what the prices were. To be honest, they had a pretty good sized discount.
Oh, I see.
Or other people that weren't in the service at all, they had to pick up their ticket.
Oh.
The ticket would be on the table. They just come by and say, okay, GI, you can, or some comment like that.
Right.
They say that, but said that way, but they just, and so that was, I got to see her quite a bit when I was there. Then we'd head off some other place. And then, I just never knew when you left, whether you were in the Pacific or North Atlantic or somewhere. And just don't forget, I was just 20 and 21 years old. 18 when I signed up. But something like that. I can't remember exactly. It wasn't nuts.
What was your first meeting like when you met her parents?
Well, it was nice. Back in those days, and you just rolled with it. Just just was, you know, she was nice and I was nice, and it was just, and she worked at a place on Fifth Avenue. And she liked it.
So you felt at ease when you met her parents the first time?
Yeah. So, but,
how do you think they, how'd they react when they found out you were going to get married and take their daughter off way far away?
They were very, very happy.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, but then on the other hand, they when they sobered up, you know, not really, not literally, but just
figuratively,
they would get to thinking, golly, or just thinking about it. She's just relaying that message to her. She's going to go leave us and go down to way down there in North Carolina.
Right.
See, I had told her between we call it season. In other words, school would be that session would be over with, and so you'd wait a week or so, and then pick up. School would start again. College I'm talking about.
Yeah.
NC State. So that's what I did.
What about the seasons? You
just I'm talking about for you know when I go up and get her and bring her back down there. That's what I would. So that's what I did. To bring her back.
So you had started school before you got married?
I went to school one quarter. You know, we corresponded a lot, talked to each other on the phone. Right,
and then you got married?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you living when you were in school before you got married?
State. Well, before the war, I was.
No, when you were in state college before you got married, where did you live?
I lived first I lived in that little trailer park.
So you lived in the trailer even before you got married?
Yeah. Well, I don't think they would let you have it. I would live in barracks first. Just a barracks, plain old barracks place where a bunch of GIs were. Then for anybody getting married, you could get into the vet's place.
Was the trailer park the vet's place?
That was one of the places.
I see.
So I got...
Maybe that was for the childless but married
I
people.
think it, yeah, definitely, I think it was. So you brought us to the place where the like a park trailer.
Oh no, you were living there before I came along.
Yeah, right.
When I came along, then you moved in those.
I was in the barracks. Barracks first.
Right. Barracks meaning like a big dorm.
Yeah.
That's where the bachelors were.
Yeah, the bachelors and I guess some of them might have been married. I don't know.
But they weren't living with their wives.
No, not the first time.
So this is like a one big room with live beds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you went up to New York City and got married, and then brought Florence back to Raleigh and lived in that trailer.
Mm-hmm. Lived in the trailer on a campground. Campground. It's just a place where the trailers were.
Right, trailer park.
Trailer park. Yep.
So then,
she was a nice person.
Then when she had me, you moved in those Vetville apartments,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Well, when I heard about that one, they were going to build some barracks over there. And put up apartments for GIs. And then, you know, I knew that you were going to be born, so I got busy. That's what I wanted. So,
put your name on the list.
yep. And long comes Bob.
And then Florence's parents came down to visit then?
I'm not sure. Maybe they did. I don't know if they came down there or not.
Yeah, I remember seeing some pictures of it.
Okay.
And your parents came up.
Mm-hmm.
So they all must have slept in those apartments somewhere.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Mm-mm.
Probably took the train down.
Yeah, I expect so.
So did you have any outside job while you were in school?
I worked in the library. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If you're a GI, you got the job. You got the jobs that GIs could do. You know what I mean? They put you to work.
Yeah.
So it helped a lot.
So then, how often would you go back to New York?
Well, I guess it's probably about a year before we went back. I don't remember exactly. That was just a quick trip. A couple of days up there tonight.
Well, did Florence seem homesick?
No, not really. She was very content.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's where I got it.
Yeah.
She was, but what made it so a lot easier for her is that there were so many GIs down there. In fact, well, everybody was a GI. It was down in that field down there.
Yeah.
Because you weren't supposed to be there on that field unless you know next GI. So that worked out pretty good. She got to see, she could chat with the ladies and learn with them and all that. So it worked out fine. And she worked, actually she got a job up there at the, one of the places up there where the cotton mill is, they were doing some experimental stuff on cotton.
Oh, in one of the labs there at the university?
Labs, right. Uh-huh. She was working for one of the labs, and she liked that too. And that worked out pretty good. And then she worked with the in one of the main offices. And that other started sagging. And, she was really good.
Then you moved back to Charlotte, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you move to Belmont?
We moved to, I don't know where, but it's went to work for J&P's company. That's where it was.
Well, I thought you worked with your dad for a little while after you got out of college.
Well, I did. I did. It's a short time. That's why I guess it didn't register, but that's true. I just went down there and went to work, and then I had made her soon after I got there. I went back to the different architects. So I signed up and I talked to J&P's company. I got in with that. I really like that. That's a good architecture.
Well, when you moved back from Raleigh, did you move to Belmont or did you move to Charlotte?
Charlotte. Definitely Charlotte. Because, you know, you have to get to work and back.
And that's where your father was still living at the time?
Where in Belmont?
In Charlotte.
Well, he moved to Charlotte.
Before the war?
I'm not sure if it was before.
Yeah, you said it was.
Yeah, I guess.
Because that's where you signed up.
Yeah, maybe so.
So he was probably still living in Charlotte when the war was over.
Probably.
So where did you move to when you came back from college?
I guess it was a G&P's company out there on Wilkes Boulevard.
No, I'm talking about where did you live?
Oh, where did I live? Oh. We took a, I think it was another one of those GI apartments. I can't remember. For sure.
I remember a Wayland Avenue apartment. Seeing some pictures of that, I vaguely remember it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you lived somewhere before that.
I think that's about what it was. So, that worked out. Worked out fine.
So you decided you could make more money working for the architectural firm than being a builder?
Yeah, definitely. That was a good company, Virginia Pease Company. It's over there near where that auditorium
Right.
was built later on. We didn't design that one, so.
And the Coliseum, too.
Yeah.
The first Coliseum.
Right. No, we didn't do the design on that.
Well, okay.
I was fortunate that I got that job because it was a good company and it was good work. Good friend of bunch. J&P's Company.
You ever meet Mr. Pease?
Yeah. So it's all, it could have been really rough.
Well, was that an old firm? Had it been around a long time?
They had been, it just seems to me like they just came to work after the war. They went together and set it up.
And so you were a structural engineer there?
Yeah. Structural engineer. I was with Pease Company about, I don't know how many years.
Remember you said you worked on the design of the Lance factory
Yeah, sure did.
with him.
Yeah. That was a really big project.
And then you built that house on Hillside Avenue.
What's that?
Out there off Park Road.
Yeah, I guess so.
I went to Park Road Baptist Church, changed from Pritchard Memorial to Park Road.
Yeah, that's probably what it was, because it was. We were down there, if not sooner than at least pretty quickly after you were born. Because you were born down there.
I was born in Raleigh.
In Raleigh? Well, must have been Diane was born.
Right. And so we lived in Wayland Avenue for a few years until I was about 4 or 5. We moved to Hillside Avenue.
Right.
And we went to Park Road Baptist Church. Remember the preacher just lived one house away from us?
Right.
Miss Milford. We just had all those cattle pastures behind us.
That was, those were Ashcrafts. Remember the Ashcraft, or I think it was Ashcraft, right across the road there from us on the other side. And then as it sloped down behind his house, it sloped down toward a little creek. Cows eating and doing well out there in that field. Ashcraft. So something.
Right.
Joe and
Well, what got you interested in moving down to Titusville?
I wasn't sure I was going to progress to a degree where I was. So I'm going to give it a try.
Well, how'd you pick Titusville?
Titusville. Okay. I don't know. That's not far. I guess it's because we were both like the beach.
Well, you could have gone in other places with beaches. What was it about Titusville? I'll let Emily get it.
Okay. Just gonna get it?
Yeah, go ahead and let Emily get it.
Okay. Okie doke.
Well, how'd you wind up picking Titusville to live?
Well, that's just a good place to live.
Flip a coin?
Yep, flip a coin.
Threw a dart at a map? Must have been something more than that.
Well, that's a good area over in there, and it's just so it worked out pretty good. Wasn't all that crowded either.
Well, didn't you know one of the guys there, Hirschberg and Thompson, from somewhere before?
Well, that's the guys that let's see. Well, they gave us some work to let's see how that worked. In other words, they gave me worked with Pease Company, and I still work for them, like doing their work at home, so to speak. I had a drafting table over at the house. So I would get the plans for the building spread out there and bring a lot of midnight oil and get it fixed up and take it over there. And then when I got home from work the next day, left their place. But in other words, I was doing moonlighting.
In Charlotte?
Mm-hmm.
And one of their jobs you moonlight?
Moonlighting, yeah, that's what I call it, it's moonlighting.
Right, but you wind up doing one of Hirschberg and Thompson's jobs,
yeah.
moonlighting?
Right.
Well, how did you get connected up with Hirschberg and Thompson?
Well, they were, I met them somewhere, so I got to had the opportunity to do the midnight jobs because they didn't have because they'd save them money too to have somebody like a structural engineer could work for them on the side, so they wouldn't have to hire.
Right.
Hire.
Well, how did you meet Hirschberg and Thompson?
They just called me. Somebody had mentioned to me to them that maybe I would be interested in doing some work there.
Oh, I see. So they called you in Charlotte and asked you if you'd do one of their jobs?
Yeah.
At night?
Mm-hmm.
And you had not known them before that?
No. Well, except for, let's see. No, I don't think so. Really good people, and of course they would get running out of work, and architects there are not.
Were they in?
They weren't building really big stuff like Pease was. And, if they don't have something of some size, they couldn't make much money on it. They're going to pay me to do it, because they could probably just set up a system there for them to take it, pick it and do it or something.
So were they in Titusville when they first called you in Charlotte?
I think so. I'm not sure.
And so you did this moonlighting work for Hirschberg and Thompson, and that was how you first got contact with them. And it seems a reasonable assumption that they were already in Titusville. And so then when you got interested in looking around somewhere different to work than Pease, you thought you'd look them up.
Well, that's something like that. But I didn't. Hirschberg Thompson, I just didn't get too enthused about that. I did some work for him, but I just didn't get too engrossed with it.
Well, how long did you work for Pease?
Well, until I decided.
Well, it must have been right after college until 1963, so that was about like 50. You graduated from state when? What year did you graduate from state?
It was all over.
Well, I was born in 48, and it was a couple more years, so you graduated like 50, 51.
50, 51, yeah. Yeah, must have been what it was.
So then you went to Charlotte, so that means you worked for Pease for about 1952 to 1963 was.
Then I moved down to Florida.
About 11 years. You moved down to Florida.
Yeah, because I went to. That was work for NASA. And that went through and just sort of.
Well, you did work for Hirschberg and Thompson a little while.
Yeah, I worked for them for a little while.
How many years do you think?
Oh, maybe 1 or 2 most.
But you just found you just wanted to move on then.
Well, I had a feeling that it was going to be temporary.
You could kind of see the handwriting on the wall, and that firm was having trouble.
Yeah, something like that. But.
So then you went to work for NASA.
Oh yeah, that was super.
That was during the glory days of
good.
The manned space program.
Yeah.
So that was Mercury, and then Gemini, and then Apollo, right?
Yeah.
So you got the to meet some of the astronauts, right?
Sure did.
So what'd you do at NASA?
Structural engineer. It was mostly a job of supervision. Because I was a structural engineer, and I was a good one, and they knew it, and they wanted me to make sure everything was shaping out. And every time they moved to one of those towers, picked one of those towers out, you know, the crawler underneath, and they picked it up.
Yeah.
And going down there to get ready for launch, but that's one thing. But then when they pick it up and carry it down there to test run it, and you're riding on top of it, which is like riding on a 15 or 20-story building.
Yeah, higher than that even.
Yeah.
More like 35 or 40.
And you get up there and you stand.
Maybe 45.
You stand up there and you're just waving back and forth like this. And that was scary.
You betcha.
But I figured it was a good construction and it should work. From what I looked at, the way I looked at it. Because I was confident that it was going to do the right thing. Let's see. And that old tall one down there with that big old heavy tower. You kind of pull that thing up and push. You know, those old grinding wheels.
Right, those big tracks.
Tracks that take you down the runway. It was really, just really great time of working down there. I just really enjoyed it every day. These people go to work and riot and groan and carry on. And I'm down there riding on top of that structure.
Right.
Just standing there waving back and forth. We couldn't stay still. Nothing. When you look down there and see that thing moving, it makes you think. Oh, I said, shoot, that thing's all right.
Yeah.
I have a lot of confidence in it.
It's a matter of understanding what's going on.
Yeah. We put those, all those stress gauges on there, and all really good.
So it must have been exciting the first time, especially.
Yeah, it's terrific.
So then didn't you see all the Apollo launches?
Mm-hmm.
So then you got to...
The one that exploded, I had just taken off. Veta was there, and I was confident that was good. So I got out there on the base.
You're talking about the Challenger shuttle launch.
Shuttle. So Veta was there, and I was showing her, and we went out there and stood there and started clicking at the camera. And I got so many photographs of that.
Right.
And then the whole thing just blew up. Killed everybody in it. I knew it. I mean, I saw it.
Yeah.
So I got all those pictures taken and got those. Did I give you a set of those?
Yeah, you did. Well, tell me about how you would get to introduce people to the astronauts. Before the launches. Not the astronauts who were actually flying, but the other astronauts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just relaxed and just go ahead and call his name first and then tell that guys.
Now, well, I mean, what was they were having receptions or some sort of VIP.
Well, there was a lot of that going on, and I'd walk up and tell the astronaut, hey, John, whatever your name is, so.
Well, what was the purpose of these meetings? It was...
Oh, just for the people that are running the show. There's a lot of they want the publicity it's getting.
Uh-huh.
Astronauts could care less.
Right. So the astronauts were required to go to these receptions, whatever it was.
Yeah, they were just pretty well insisted by their chiefs that they go ahead and go with you guys.
Right.
You don't have to stay there very long.
But then you would escort these VIPs in to these receptions.
Yeah.
And
yep, that's it. But that one day, when we had the lift off and things started up, and all of a sudden, explosions. Still got those pictures when you're somewhere. And really, Veta was just, I took her out there with me. So I really wasn't working that day. And I just took pictures and started in time. And started until it blew up.
So Veta was upset by that?
Oh, yeah. She was really upset. I was with about 4 or 5 guys who go up on the tower to make sure that those gauges are working properly when they were testing it. Make sure it's, so you could go up there and they could start the tower down the roadway.
Yeah.
You can't stay still. It's just wobbling like that. And that's, it's one of those towers. It was one of those towers that blew up. And I can't figure out yet why.
No, it was a rocket that blew up.
Yeah, the rocket, I'm sorry.
And then the rocket blew up after it left the tower.
Right.
So
Yeah.
nothing's wrong with the tower.
Right. Yeah.
So did you see any of the Gemini launches?
Gemini, I don't think, maybe so. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I saw a lot of them. I can't remember exactly which ones. That was a good job to have. But it sure hurts when you see something like that happen.
Well, it was the O-rings failing and the boosters.
Mm-hmm.
Case of the management overriding the engineers, telling them we're going to launch in this cold weather no matter what.
I guess I had a pretty good life, except the war part.
Well, it sounds like to me you were pretty lucky in the war.
Yeah, I was very lucky. Very lucky.
Considering all the chances are to get killed in that whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and forth across submarine-infested waters repeatedly.
Yeah.
On the North Atlantic, remember you telling me about how they would get ice frozen on the ship?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And boy, it would freeze too.
That happened every time you'd go up there?
Well, of course, it's only in the wintertime. In the summers that it's not that bad as far as freezing is concerned. It's in the wintertime, so you catch the really bad seasons, freezing on the top.
Or would it be when you'd go through a rainstorm or something?
Well, that would be rough out there, and there's a lot of giant waves doing this to you, tossing you just around like that. You're almost at 90 degrees when you flip it around. It's not quite that bad, but it's really tough. Well, the requested destroyer here too.
So what was the scariest thing you remember about being in the Navy?
Well, I guess that there's big giant waves, and of course, every time you start to get bombing and shelling, and then there's two things there that
right.
really tear you up.
I'd be more scared of the bombs.
Yeah.
The destroyer is a pretty tough boat. Pretty well built.
Yep. She said, oh, so.
So you still know any of the people that you were in the war with?
Well, I guess if I remember the notebook, I could maybe write down some notes. And, but really I can't. I'm not sure. It's been too many years.
Right. Oh, I remember you said you were in a PT plane. Torpedo plane squadron at the end of the war?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was it was a squadron of planes. The TVOs is what? We were preparing to go to Japan. Expected to go just about any time. We're up in New England. And all the pilots were up there every day. I think we were getting some practice.
So what was going to be your role with the torpedo planes?
Nothing. Just keep that squadron. Up with all the stuff that's coming in the news. And
Do what?
keep them accounting. I mean, keep them well aware of all the orders that come in and the anything that they need to know. They need to make sure you have to make sure that it's done. Make sure it's taken care of.
So it was a.
All you have to do is tell them and let them know. They don't need to have to take time to study all that stuff and read it to them.
Oh, I see. So you summarize it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Was that still a yeoman's position?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know they had yeomen with torpedo planes.
Yeah, that's what my job was.
So you didn't have to fly if you didn't want to.
Well,
I assume.
no. Well, it's I wouldn't. I'm thinking some things that they would not want you on board. So because they were well trained in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they don't want any kind of confusion going on. So many cases where there needs some kind of a work from something from the yeoman that they think that he can do it.
Well, you flew in the Peachy torpedo plane, didn't you?
Yeah.
Was that just for fun that you did that, or?
Well, it's hard to tell, but I think it went very deep.
What?
I think it kept us alert.
Yeah. But you asked to go up in the plane.
So they'll ask you if you want to take one, go with. So maybe one of the guys might be sick or can't make it today for some other reasons. But you can't help. Then they'll have to fill somebody in, because I had been trained to fire the guns. I can't fly the plane. I don't know how.
Oh, okay. So you could fire the guns on the plane?
Yeah, that's not that big a deal. And so if you had to shoot, you got to be there.
Yeah. So did you enjoy flying up on the plane?
Yeah, well, it was pretty good. Because it was, they were just very business-like. They let you know that that's what it's all about. And let the enemy get through.
So they would patrol offshore?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the Navy, you know, if you're out at sea, you just you keep if you're patrolling at sea, you just have to fly a little. Now this is with a carrier operation, and so I didn't fly on the carriers. I was on this destroyer, which is protecting the plane. I mean the planes and the pilots. So when they take off, I'd just be there to help our crews get down in case somebody gets bogged down about some kind of rules or regulations.
So when you do fly on the plane, do you wear a parachute all the time?
They want you to, but I usually always do it. But sometimes I do, or did. And I'll hand right on that booger. I'll jump. I wouldn't hesitate to jump.
So you said one time the plane engine quit?
Yeah. But they got it going again. Sputtering it was pretty well all the way back, but he brought it in.
So I bet you had your parachute on at that time.
I did.
Yeah.
And I had he said, you still want to jump? He said, and we're still at plenty of elevation, but I said, no way. As long as you can get the control here, it seems like it's sputtering a little bit, but let's go with it.
Yeah.
They had gumption enough to fly it down and land it. So I said, if you can do it, I can too.
Well, did you ever find out what caused it?
No, they didn't tell me. I don't know what was something that was not working right.
So that was an exciting time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how many men did those planes carry?
Which one was TBMs?
What's the TBM?
Torpedo bomber.
I see.
They'd probably take a pilot, maybe one of the other guys that's a gunner and navigator. I don't know if they'd have two of them or not for that, but it's of course you got the big pilot and I don't know about the gunners. It depends on what the situation is. What it is. Is it really about to happen, or is it just something going to be just a ride through the day? It's a big decision for the captain.
Now this was up in Maine, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, who wants
Howdy.
to play with the kids?
We're taping.
Where's the trampoline?
The back up in there.
Where? You put it up?
Yes. Well, what church did you go to when you were in Belmont with all those kids?
In Belmont,
Yeah.
it's First Baptist Church.
First Baptist Church in Belmont itself.
Where did you just put it?
Reverend R.A. Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y. Very good preacher. That was back to, gosh, early times.
I want to sit.
Then we moved to Charlotte.
Is that where you were baptized, First Baptist
Mm-hmm.
in Belmont?
Yep. So it was Belmont. And that's when I was just a youngster, and I was still pretty young when we moved to Charlotte. I guess I was about 16, 15 or 16. And the war started about 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah.
And
So we talked about how you moved to Titusville, worked for Hirschberg and Thompson for 2 or 3 years. And
that was in Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, no, you worked for Hirschberg and Thompson in Titusville.
Oh yeah, that was Titusville. Yeah.
Then you designed and built a house in Titusville on the golf course.
Right.
And that was a nice house.
Very nice. Yep. But see, that really wasn't where I wanted the house. I mean, I didn't want to live down there. I wanted North Carolina. It was a nice place to live down there. Just, I like it better up here.
Except in the wintertime.
Yeah, except for winter. Actually, I like the wintertime too. I don't have to get out in it.
Yeah. So did you play golf down there a lot?
Yeah, I was right on the golf course. And right there with our regular foursome.
Who was in your foursome?
Different guys, and you had to be there early before you make sure you got your spot, because there were usually might be 5 or 6 guys there. So if you get there first, you get to play.
Right.
The other two will have to wait and get themselves a foursome.
So
that was a good place to live. I like that too.
So you play golf after work there?
Sometimes I did. That's a shame. So many things had to happen.
You know, remember there was an alligator in that lake behind the house?
Yeah.
Big one.
Yeah. Big old gators. That was something to live down there like that. That was. That was really nice.
Yeah. So then,
Got a nice house up too. Gosh, that was great.
they had orange trees in the backyard, or citrus trees, different kind.
Grapefruit.
You retired from NASA. Did you retire earlier than you intended to because
No.
of Florence's cancer?
Well, yeah, I guess I did.
So you could build this house here in the mountains, right?
Mhm.
You come up here a lot on vacations before that, right?
Yeah. He always came up. That's a good place down there. It's just too far down there, away from everybody.
Yeah, it is a good ways down.
Mm-hmm.
So then you lived up here for a while, at least in the summer times, right? In the warm weather, and you lived down there in the cold weather.
Mm-hmm. It was nice.
And then Florence died. So then you started living up here Well, I guess you kept alternating back and forth, and you met Veta, right?
Yeah.
How'd you meet Veta?
Got the writers group in Waynesville.
Uh-huh.
That's something I would enjoy, but apparently it has not been reformed.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know that there is anymore. I don't know. It'll be good to ask around.
Right.
I'm trying to get a book shaped up in there. So I'll see how that works out. You know, it's just strange how things happen like that. And, you know, you see guys that can't do anything to help, and just, I guess what I'm saying is, this war is hell.
Right. Well, that's very true.
So,
but we're talking about a lot of nice things after the war.
You just.
So then you met Veta up here,
Yeah,
and you started
that's what I was thinking about. It's just,
dating her.
she was a great lady.
And yeah, she was nice. So then you decided to sell the house in Titusville, right?
Right.
Well, did Veta like Titusville?
I think she liked it pretty good.
Uh-huh.
Really.
And she's from Fort Walton Beach,
Mm-hmm.
right? And she lived up in Waynesville. And her husband had died of cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not too long before Florence died of cancer.
Right.
So the timing was just right.
Yep.
So then you came up here and lived in this house for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I added on to it.
Yep. Well, the people are really nice up here and friendly and helpful. So that has been a big help.
Yeah. Now Diane and Rick were born in Charlotte, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think while we were living in that Hillside Avenue house, right?
I think so, yeah. I'm not sure about Rick, was he?
He was born in Charlotte,
Okay.
but he was pretty young when we moved to Titusville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He went to, I know, junior high school, maybe some elementary school in Titusville as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he's lived in Titusville basically his whole life.
Yeah.
And then all three kids went off to the University of Florida
Mm-hmm.
after graduating from Titusville High School and graduated from the University of Florida.
That's strange how Rick graduated. You know, seemed to be doing well. And then just
Right.
sort of things came to pieces.
Right. Well, it's that schizophrenia is a classic symptoms that they manifest themselves in early adulthood.
They come out more at that time
Right.
when you get older, or just
Or early adulthood.
early adulthood.
Right.
Do they do people usually grow out of it?
Some do, some don't. So, getting back to here, when you and Veta were married for about 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Before she died.
Yeah, it's just... She was really somebody.
Yeah, she was nice. I agree.
It just tore me up. I just...
So we're still here in your house, continuing on.
Yeah. There's ladies down here at the Peaceful Church that I know that they keep wanting me to take them out sometime or whatever.
Uh-huh.
They're just really nice people. But I just haven't done it.
Well, you just have to take time about things. See how things work out. Okay, anything other interesting stories you want to tell about your childhood, old days back home?
Well, I really don't know anything right now that we haven't discussed.
What were your responsibilities as a child when you had the farm?
Oh, I had to chop the cotton, so to speak. In order to get out there and hoe, go around the vegetables and whatever.
Oh, the weeds, you mean?
Get the weeds out. I don't know why they call it that way. Like, hoe the weed. You get out there and hoe those beans. But see, that's not, you don't hoe them. You just get the weeds out.
Right.
But that's basically the way they used to say it. I guess sometimes I'll say it that way too.
Well, would your mother wash the clothes in a big pot out in the yard?
Absolutely. Maybe two of them.
Seems like a hard way to do laundry.
Oh yeah. And you know, you'll build a fire around that pot.
Yeah.
Logs or limbs or whatever you find. And boil them. And that's the way they do it. So.
Lunch is ready.
Okay, well that was a good talk, Dad.
Yeah.
Appreciate your
Well, I guess
speaking
it gave
to
me
us.
a chance to get some things off my chest.
So we'll continue this when we come up with another agenda, okay?
Another agenda.
Thanks.